Hello, everyone. Gonna let everyone get settled, get connected to their audio. We've got quite the crowd this evening. All right. I'll say this a few times throughout the start. We are recording this meeting so that we can post it for anybody who cannot make it this evening. If you are like, oh, I don't want to be recorded and posted on the housing website, that is okay. Go ahead and turn your camera off. I do ask that you keep your mic off the entire duration of the webinar, because all of your questions that are going to come to us can go ahead and go through the chat. So if you've got some questions, start thinking of those. We are going to be putting some stuff in the chat at the start. So if you want to hold off for just a minute, I do ask that audio remains off. That way it's not too much competing. When we've got the amount of people in a meeting that we do this evening, it can get a little bit scattered when we have everyone's audio on. Videos are up to you. You're welcome to have them on if you would like, or if you don't want to be recorded, again, you can have those off. That is also optional. My name is Mackenzie. I use she, her pronouns, and a little bit about myself. I have been at Western for 3 years, and I've been working at the housing office for the entire duration of my time at Western. I am a communication studies and psychology student who's actually going to graduate this upcoming fall. So exciting to have a little bit of time back in the world before I graduate. So we would like to welcome everyone to our third housing and dining webinar for the summer. We're excited to have you all here and hope to answer all of your questions about fall 2021 tonight. Since move-in is about a month away, we would like to focus our conversation tonight on the move-in experience, but we are open to any and all questions about living on campus. Please note, again, this webinar will be recorded so we can share this information presented tonight with those who couldn't attend. We thank you all for joining us, and we're really excited to get started. Before we begin, we know that students are always looking for student leadership positions, and housing is hiring. We have 2 opportunities to consider. At first, the Residence Hall Association, or RHA, and the National Residence Hall Honorary, NRHH, are seeking residential student leaders who are passionate about shaping the live-in experience for current and future students. RHA and the NRHH executive officers have the opportunity to develop new leaders, shape policies on campus, and advocate for the needs of their constituents. The following positions are open in each organization. Those are going to be posted in the chat so that you can all see those rather than me reading the list of them that are available. So go ahead and take a look at the chat so that you can see those. The Viking Union is also hiring. We'll put a link in the chat for 10 positions that are open right now. But other than that, we're going to start by introducing some of our panelists, and you are welcome to start putting some of your questions in the chat so we can help you out with those. We are really here to answer all of your questions, so please start putting any questions you have in there. We'll make sure to send those out to our panelists to ask live. Starting with Kai Mieterdorf, our program specialist for occupancy management, communications, and administrative services. Can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, pronouns if comfortable, position, and what you're here to help us out with?
Nice to see everybody tonight. My name is Kaimi. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the occupancy specialist for, as Mackenzie said, the occupancy, admin services, communications, and technology team here at University Residences. And I am your occupancy guru. So if you have questions about assignments, things like that, I will be glad to answer those for you. I've been in this position for 14 years, so I've got quite a lot of experience in that.
Wonderful. And really quick before we move on, I did miss the question that was sent to all of you to ask. Is there anything that you believe students should not bring to campus while they're living on campus?
There's a few things, but I would say, please don't bring a couch. We've had people try to do that before. It won't fit. So don't bring a couch, but do bring a fan. That one's not on your list of things to bring usually, and it's a good one to remember. Apologies for my puppy who's barking. The working from home has been wonderful, except when the animals go crazy.
Amazing. Shifting over to Katie, Program Coordinator, again for Occupancy Management, Communications, and Administrative Services. Same questions for you, including that last question of anything that students should not bring to campus.
Yeah, thanks, Mackenzie. I'm glad to be here with everybody tonight. I am a program coordinator with Occupancy, Communication, Administrative Services, and I'm here to help with move-in related questions. So how you arrive and what you do when you get here. And I would say don't bring too much stuff to campus. So however much stuff you think you're going to bring less, because there is always less room than you think in the rooms, and you want to be sure to be able to have room for all the fun stuff you're going to accumulate while you stay as well. So be conservative in what you bring, and if you need more things, order them in the mail or bring them home when you're home for breaks, and leave room in your room for fun new things you're getting to.
Thank you, Katie. Shifting now over to Dave, University Residences Conduct and Case Manager. Again, same questions for you, including anything that students shouldn't bring to campus.
Yeah, I'm Dave Rubel, and I'm the University Residences Conduct Officer and Case Manager. And I have been here at Western in different positions within housing, but for 22 years. So I have quite a bit of experience too in different aspects of housing here. Just kind of a quick little fact too, my two oldest kids are going to be college students this year as well. My oldest is an out-of-state student, will be a sophomore. And I'm pretty excited that my oldest daughter will be a freshman at Western. So I'm taking notes as well and have been paying close attention to these webinars. The thing I would say, there's a whole list of things if you go through the community standards. One of the areas that I do of what things not to bring, whole list of things like explosives. But I was looking at Patrick's picture here, and while we do allow emotional support animals, I would highly suggest that live tigers are not something that you would want to bring. So
I appreciate that. That was definitely on my short list of things to bring to campus my freshman year. So I definitely needed that notice before I moved in. Shifting now to Christian, Assistant Director for Residence Life. Same questions for you. Name, introduce yourself, and then what should students not bring to campus?
Hi everyone, Christian Urcia, he, him, his are my pronouns, Assistant Director in the Residence Life Office. I've worked for Western for 7 years now. I started off as a live-in professional staff member, so I ran a couple of the residence halls and supervised the RA staff. So that's kind of my experience and the student live-in experience. So if anyone has questions about that, happy to answer. I would say in that regard, that list that everyone is referencing to, some of the prohibited items such as like alcohol or marijuana, if you are not of age, and especially marijuana, since we are still funded by the federal government. So that is definitely prohibited and not legal on campus property. So definitely do not bring that.
Thank you, Christian. And last but definitely not least, we have Vicki, Associate Director for Residence Life. Same questions for you.
Hi, Vicki Vanderwerf, she, her pronouns, work in Residence Life. So really excited to welcome you all to campus in the fall, as well as parents, family members, friends who are helping students move in. Something I would not bring, I would look at our residence hall reuse program. There's a link to it on our move-in website where they have mini fridges, other small appliances that you can rent out for free for the full academic year. And it's one of our ways to be more sustainable on campus. So I would check that out.
Wonderful. We're going to now get into some of our questions for this evening. We have about an hour. It is 5:11 now. We'll close out questions around 5:57 just to make sure that we have time to also tell you how else you can contact us afterwards. So shifting over to some of our questions, Christian, this first question is for you. What will fall opening look like? And are there in-person activities and classes?
Yeah, great question. So we're hoping that fall will look like our more traditional falls. We're really excited for a lot of the campus population to come back. A majority of our classes will be in person, and in-person activities such as those that are hosted in the residence halls. We're really trying to do a lot of those things in person, but of course do things according to state and county guidelines related to COVID. And as things change in that regard, we're going to have to pivot and accommodate those guidelines as well. So we are really happy to have a lot of students move back into our residence halls this year. We only had about 25% of our normal occupancy move in. We have a bunch of RAs that are all starting as well. Really excited to bring folks and do a lot of more of the traditional events, and of course, still pivot and make sure that we're doing things COVID safe. And in that regard, masks at this point are still required on campus, especially when indoor. And so just know that that information has been sent out by the university, and know that things could change. We're hoping that they change for the better, but yeah, really looking at getting things back to how things were pre-pandemic.
Thanks so much, Christian. Vicki, this next question is for you. Will I need to get tested prior to check-in? How do I prove my vaccination status? And when should we schedule those COVID tests?
Yeah, great question. So we do encourage you to get tested for COVID-19 if you're a student moving into the residence halls before you arrive. So you can do that anywhere from the day you arrive, the day before you arrive, to 7 days prior to your move-in date. So we definitely encourage you to get tested for COVID-19 before you come to campus. And you can submit those results to your health portal, your student health portal on My Western Health. You can find that on the Student Health Center website. If you can't get tested, if there's not accessibility in your town, we know that accessibility is better now for COVID-19 compared to where we were last year. So a lot of drugstores in your local community tests. So look out for that. Check out your local health department. They should have testing sites. But if for some reason you cannot get tested, that will not delay your move-in. You can still move in September 16th to the 20th. And then we'll have you get tested on campus. Our Student Health Center does testing. We'll start testing the week of September 20th. So at your first floor meeting, we'll have you sign up to get tested for COVID sometime that first full week that you're here. In terms of vaccination, proof of vaccination, you also want to submit that to the Student Health Center through your patient portal through My Western Health. So make sure you check out, again, the Student Health Center website to be able to do that. That will delay your move-in if you do not have proof of vaccination or you're not on an approved waiver. So you want to make sure you get that in before your move-in date, well before. I encourage you to do that now. We're starting to contact students who haven't submitted proof of vaccination yet. So please do that as soon as possible, because we're not able to give you keys unless you have that into the Student Health Center and you're cleared to move in. So definitely an important piece. We definitely want to get your measles paperwork in as well. I know that's not COVID-19, but another important step to make sure you have before move-in.
Thanks so much, Vicki. Shifting over to Kaimi now, this question says, do we pay before or after move-in? Also, how do we do that?
I assume you mean your housing bills. So housing and dining get billed to your student account. And those are technically due the first day of classes, but aren't considered late until the third Friday of the month following that. That date. So third Friday of October is when those will be due. Typically that's the same for every quarter. So those bills will all be on your student account, including your tuition, housing, dining, all of those things.
Wonderful. This question is for Dave. Is there a limit to how many people can help a student move in, and do the helpers need to be vaccinated?
Yeah, so this is a little different from those of you who may have been on campus last year. We are not setting a limit on the number of helpers coming to assist your students or assist the students with moving in. However, we are asking that anyone who's coming to help just follow the guidelines around masking and social distancing to try to keep everyone safe. I would say that the less the better. Just in years past, this would be a big event, and I get that. And as a parent, I get the desire to want a lot of people to come and make this an event. But during our current situation, we really are focusing on safety.
Thank you so much, Dave. Kaimi, we're hopping back over to you. If we are doing Viking launch, do we need to move in or sign up for move in on August 16th? And what time does sign up for moving in scheduling open?
Sure. So August 16th is when that move and sign up opens. And if you are part of a particular program that's arriving on a specific day, that day's information will be in the move-in app for you already. So Viking Launch moves in on September 12th, and that's the day that will be available for you to pick for arrival for that day. And similar, if you're in a different program that arrives on a different day, that information will already be in there for you.
Awesome, thanks so much. Christian, oh, there it is. Can we apply for ESAs at any point throughout the year, or do we have to apply before the quarter begins?
You are more than welcome to apply for emotional support animal at any point in the quarter or the academic year, but some important things, and you'll find this on our housing website, is we do ask that you don't bring the emotional support animal into your space until you've gone through a multi-step process through approval. Your first step, you're definitely going to want to go to the Disability Access Center and go through the process with them and get approved. And then you're going to want to meet with folks in our department and go through our policies, our community standards, and get approved there. So that's one of the things that our students often find themselves, is that they'll bring the animal first and then go through the process. You need to go through the process first, get approved, and then meet with 2 offices, and then you can bring that animal to us. So.
And I'll add another quick note to that. If you get approved now, you will be able to bring your ESA with you when you arrive for fall. But if you get approved during the academic year, there is a waiting period to bring your animal to campus, because we have to notify your roommates, suite mates, that sort of thing, and make sure that nobody needs to be moved due to allergies or things like that before you're able to bring your animal with you. So if you're thinking of going through that process, get on it now.
Absolutely. And Kaimi, this next question is actually for you. When do you get matched for a roommate if you don't have one already?
So the way that process works, typically you will end up being matched for a roommate through the room selection process. So everybody gets to pick their own room. Most of you have already done this. Room selection closes on the 15th. So if you have a room selection time and you haven't picked, please go do that now, so that you have a room for the fall to move into. But if you do end up not having a roommate, and there are some folks that won't get assigned until later, we have some temporary assignment folks, and also some folks will just not have anybody pick the other spot in their room. We will go ahead and assign anybody who hasn't picked a room, and the temporary folks eventually. Those temporary folks will get a room assignment on September 2nd. But we will use the roommate profile that you completed on your housing application to match up roommates for that.
Amazing, thank you so much. This next question is for Katie. I skipped a question. This is still for Katie. I have read that we can request a move-in time, but it may not be honored. How often does that happen? And what if we don't have a lot of flexibility? There we go.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Overall, with the move-in times, we do have enough slots for everyone to select a time. So if you're able to select a time, we do honor that time. And if you are unable to select the exact time slot that you want, look for others surrounding it, because oftentimes we will have other availability close by. If you do go to select a time and there's just no times nearby, and you need to, let us know you're coming at a really specific time, you can shoot us an email to our office email, which is housing@wwu.edu, and we can take a look at that for you and work out your schedule. And as Kaini mentioned before, if you're part of a specific program, the times available will match with the arrival schedule for your specific program. So there will be a reduced number of times available for folks in a program, but still enough for everyone in the program to select a time. So.
Thank you, Katie. Vicki, this next question is for you. I read that the first meal is served for dinner on September 19th. If students move in before then, how do they eat until then? And where can we find those times for dining?
Yeah, so your regular meal plan does start Sunday night, September 19th with dinner. However, we extended our move-in process this year because of COVID-19 to make sure that there was appropriate physical distancing if that was needed. So housing is covering your meals from the day that you move in. So if you move in, as an example, on Thursday, September 16th, you'll have meals starting that night on Thursday night with dinner. So your first meal is the dinner of the day that you move in. So if you move in on Friday night's that first meal. So we will make sure that those hours are posted on the website if they're not already on dining's website. So we'll get that up if it's not up there yet. But dining will be open for brunch and lunch and dinner each day.
Wonderful. Hopping back to Kaini, if we're in temporary housing, can you note how long that might be before we are placed in permanent housing?
So there's a couple of different things that will happen over the next couple of weeks. We'll get cancellations and people will shift around in different rooms on campus. So the folks who have been placed in assignment pending may end up getting a permanent assignment before you move in. Some of them will, some of them won't. So the folks that are in temporary housing to start out the year, those typically are students that will be placed as a roommate of an RA. And usually those assignments will last somewhere between 4 and 8 weeks, although we have had those go a little bit longer depending on the year and how full we are. So it kind of depends on what opens up in the community that you're in, because once you move into one of those RA roommate assignments, we want to be able to keep you in the community that you're in, since you're already developing ties with that community. And it's really important to be able to keep you within that group once you've moved into that and you make those ties. So it kind of depends on what opens and when. But hopefully, those assignments won't last more than, 6 to 8 weeks.
Thank you. Shifting over to Vicki now. When will room dimensions and room layouts, photos, etc., be released for Alma Clark Glass Hall? Where can I find dimensions and layouts for other rooms on campus?
I do know a great resource is our housing website. If you go to just housing, www.wwu.edu, that will pull up our housing website. And then there's a button right, when you scroll down a bit, it says explore our buildings. That will get you to each of the residence halls, and there's floor plans for each residence hall, including Alma Clark Glass floor plans are on there as well. So you can see what the floor layouts look like, what a typical room looks like. So those should be posted on the website. Does anybody know? I'd have to look to make sure Alma Clark Glass, the room layouts are on there. Okay, so we'll double check that.
Floor plans are available online, but I believe there is a little scale, but not specific measurements.
Okay, thanks, Song.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to shift over to our next question, unless we have any comments on that one. Kaimi, this is for you. My housing selection recently opened. I have an ESA with me, and I've been told that I should contact my roommate to ask if they're okay with it. How can I reselect my room if my roommate is not okay with my animal?
So you would go through the same process that you used to select your room in the first place. You go back to room selection, and instead of choosing a brand new room, you would choose the option to change my room selection. You only have a certain amount of days to do that because room selection closes after August 15th. So you'll want to get that done pretty quickly.
Thank you. Dave, this question is for you. Are we allowed to add shelves that require screws or nails on the walls?
Yeah, you're going to want to avoid anything that would permanently damage the walls. So what we do recommend, you can certainly hang things on the walls, but look at like some of the 3M kind of products that will affix, and some of those will hold pretty tight, but then come up and don't do any damage once you're moving out. There's some different products like that, but be careful on some of those adhesives, because when they're up for quite a while, you try to take those off, they'll take paint, as well as sometimes some of the wall board will come off with it. And so any damage would be billed back to you at the end of the year. The rooms do have shelves and things there, as well as looking at like something freestanding that you could use as a shelf system as well would be preferred.
Thank you. Christian, this next one is for you. Who do we talk to about fridge rentals? I know those were mentioned earlier. And what else can we potentially rent?
Yeah, great question. So our reuse program is really new and it's really cool. So if you just Google WWU reuse program, and I'll put the link in the chat after I'm done answering, that's a great play. There's a portal essentially, and so you find out there's a catalog that I'm looking at right now, and you see what's currently reserved or what's available, and then you can request. There's like a button that you click to request an item. In addition to fridges, I'm looking at a catalog of microwaves. There's mattress covers and pads, other bedding. There are technology category, and I see that there was a Vizio TV available, but currently is reserved. So it's a lot of items that students have passed on because they don't want to move it or they don't have use for it. And so it's one of a great way that we have sustainable solutions at Western. So I'll go ahead and put that link in the chat right now for folks who want to view on the website.
Thank you. This next question is for Kaimi once again. When is the latest I can cancel housing without incurring extra fees?
Sure. So that's coming up pretty quickly. Well, actually, if you are an incoming student, the last day to cancel without forfeiting any of your deposit would have been June 30th. At this point, you will forfeit half of your deposit if you cancel before August 15th. After that point, you forfeit that full deposit.
Thank you. Vicki, we're heading over to you next. What is the plan for COVID-19 related closures of in-person learning? Will students in residence halls be able to stay on campus and do remote learning? And will unvaccinated students be sent home?
Yeah, so right now we really look to campus guidance in terms of class functionality and class modality. So right now our current plans are for the majority of classes to be in person. We're always monitoring as a campus health and safety guidelines from the state, higher ed. We work with a lot of our state institutions as well to see what's happening around the state and work with our county health department in addition to that. So currently we're moving ahead similar to all summer as we have been planning with having in-person classes and students living in the residence halls. Housing really doesn't close. Even at the height of the pandemic last year, we were open for students who needed a place on campus and wanted to live on campus. That could change, of course, depending on health and safety guidance and what that comes. But I never foresee us closing completely for all students. Some students, this is their permanent residence, so we definitely take that into account as well. In terms of unvaccinated students, So the only time unvaccinated students would be required to leave is if campus declared a designated outbreak of COVID-19 cases. That's determined by campus administration, including a big factor in that is the Student Health Center to determine what an outbreak means on campus. So if campus does determine an outbreak and there are several cases of COVID-19 positive cases on campus, then unvaccinated students are required to leave campus at that time. So that is really good information to know if you're on an approved waiver, not permanently, but you'd be required to leave until campus is cleared. So at least 2 weeks to make sure that those cases are cleared and they've recovered at that point, are no longer contagious with COVID-19. So good information there. So great question.
Thank you. Katie, this next question is for you. Will there be people to help me unload and move in during check-in?
Yeah, the answer is yes. We will have university staff working and move in to help unload and direct you to various places around campus. We also do have a volunteer program for students who would like to be on our Western Welcome Team, what we call it, to help folks unload. And for that, you get to move in 1 day early. So watch our move-in website for more information about that coming soon.
Thank you. Christian, this next one is for you. I plan to bring a car for the first quarter and then switch to just a bike/bus. How realistic is this?
I think the answer depends on what you plan on using your vehicle for. So if you're just simply bringing your vehicle to transport your items, but you don't need it during the quarter, that it just really depends. But we do have a pretty good bus system for our Whatcom Transit Authority, and all of our students get a free bus pass with that. And the bus runs all the way through campus and brings to different parts of Bellingham. And so if you have means or want to explore downtown, which is just down the hill from our campus, a lot of students find themselves not needing a car. So I guess it just depends on the purpose of why you wanted a car in the first quarter and then turning it over. But we have a pretty accessible campus, so it just depends.
Thank you. Vicki, this one is for you. Do we still need to get tested if we are already vaccinated?
Yeah, so everybody vaccinated or unvaccinated needs to get tested that week prior to their move-in experience, or once they moved in, that week of move-in, that September 20th week is when they'll get tested by the Student Health Center. But regardless of vaccination, all students need to get tested just because we're in such a communal living environment in the residence halls.
Thank you, Christian. That question's already been asked, so I'm gonna skip it. Dave, where do we find guidelines for appliances like mini fridges and microwaves?
Yeah, so if you go onto the housing website and look up community standards, under electrical equipment and appliances, so you can just click on the E, there's a list in there of what type of appliances are approved and what's prohibited. The general guideline is that anything needs to be certified by a UL certification and or other professional certification. And then there's guidelines on microwave ovens up to 900 watts and refrigerators up to about 4 cubic feet. I saw a question in the chat about bringing a hot pot. That's totally fine to have in your room. What we're really trying to avoid is safety issues. So we don't allow anything with an open coil or the old halogen lamps that had really hot halogen bulbs in them, just to avoid fires or electrical issues. So again, yep, just pop onto community standards and there should be more specific examples on there.
Thank you so much. Katie, we are back to you. If we are an out-of-state student and are shipping items, where do we ship it to?
Yeah, so you'll want to ship that directly to your campus address. And I will post a link in the chat for our mail related website. It has a lot of great frequently asked questions about mail on campus, specifically around delivery to the residence halls. So check that out when you get the chance. Some very common things to remember is to address your package correctly and to put your name as we have it in our WW systems on your package. So for example, don't put a nickname, put your whole name, and the name needs, because the name needs to match. And for the fall arrival, please don't have any packages arrive prior to September 16th because our front desks are not fully open prior to that to process your mail. So do watch those delivery dates.
And if you don't know what your address is yet, it's actually listed on your housing dashboard in the My Housing portal, as long as you've done room selection already.
Thank you both. Vicki, this question is for you. If students have an unvaccinated roommate, will all suite mates be required to quarantine if there is a positive case on campus? Do they need to wear masks in their rooms with unvaccinated suite mates?
Let me tell me, Mackenzie, if I answer this whole question, but housing actually does not know who is vaccinated and who is unvaccinated on campus. The Student Health Center holds that information. So there are no additional requirements for unvaccinated versus vaccinated versus unvaccinated students. We do that because of all of health records, medical information is confidential through HIPAA. So housing is unaware of who is vaccinated and not. All we know is that a student is cleared, meaning that they've submitted their proof of vaccination or they're on an approved waiver through the Student Health Center. So in terms of the quarantine, there's no reason to quarantine. If somebody does test positive in your room, unvaccinated or vaccinated, if you're a vaccinated student, then you do not need to quarantine unless you're experiencing symptoms of COVID-19. And we would monitor that, you would monitor that, and we would communicate with the Student Health Center that information. But there's no immediate need to quarantine in that case if you're a vaccinated student. If you are unvaccinated, then yes, we would want you to go over to quarantine just to monitor any symptoms that you're having. If you are, and if you're asymptomatic, we still want you to move over to quarantine just to make sure that you are taken care of and that you remain healthy and safe as well. There was another part of that question, Mackenzie, that I think I'm missing.
I think that the first part of that question covered all, or the first part of that answer covered all of the questions here, considering that we don't have access to that information. So students, the second part of that question was like, do they need to wear masks in the rooms with unvaccinated suite mates? And that's not something we can tell them, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yes, and we are requiring face masks in public areas, but not in rooms. So it's optional to wear a face mask in your room, but it's not required. It's only in public areas of the building.
Thank you so much. Christian, this question is for you. For out-of-state students, can you recommend a place to store possessions over the summer?
Yeah, there are several storage units available in Bellingham. There is one specifically close to campus that runs on the main bus line. I believe it's called Advanced Heated Self-Storage. It's brand new. This is not a sponsorship or anything like that, but I think that's the closest that you'll find to campus. But prices do vary based on area. But I see a lot of students who go away for the summer and they store their stuff. So.
Thank you so much. Katie, this question is for you. A move-in app was mentioned. Can you explain what we need to prepare for August 16th move-in scheduling? Like, is there something you have to download? What does that look like?
Yeah, great question. So to clarify there a little bit, You don't have to download a separate app. Our scheduling tool is going to be linked on our website on the 16th. So there's nothing in particular you need to do to prepare, but make sure you have your plan in place of when you'd like to come, and that you have your login information as well, because you will need that to log in for a unique time. So otherwise, just be marking your calendars and be sure to let us know that information.
Thank you. Let's see. Christian, this next question is also for you. Should each student bring their own printer for the residence hall?
I guess it depends on your classes and what's required for printing, but each of the residence halls does have a computer lab or computer area that has a printer available to you. Of course, you're going to want to load your cards with student funding, and then there's a charge per print, and that student funding can also go to any of the printers available at different classrooms around the university. So it just depends on if you want it just conveniently in your room, or if you just want to go to your res community or somewhere on campus.
Thank you. Kaimi, this next question is for you. Why are housing rates different for each quarter?
There's a different length for fall quarter than there are for winter and spring quarters. So you'll see that fall quarter is a little bit more expensive. And the other piece is that we actually front load our rates. So the students who continue to stay with us throughout the year benefit from that. So each quarter, the price goes down just a little bit.
Thank you, Kaimi. Vicki, this one is for you. If someone is COVID positive, where will they isolate? And will there be regular COVID-19 testing?
Yeah, so if somebody does test positive for COVID-19, we do have designated spaces on campus in a few different locations for students to isolate. So we would make sure that take care of you if you're the student who tests positive. We transport you or move you to that space, help you move your belongings. We'll check in with you, deliver meals while you're in that isolation space. Make sure you're connecting with classes and that you're connecting to social opportunities as well, at least virtually. So we do have different options for isolation space depending on needs. It's mostly focused on one residential community, but there are really some spaces across campus. Another piece of that was around testing. So there is testing availability on campus through the Student Health Center. They actually have a new test this next academic year that you get results within 15 minutes, which is great. So you'll know right away pretty much if you are COVID positive or not. So testing is available. There's no requirement to get tested unless you're unvaccinated. If you are unvaccinated, there's a requirement to get tested weekly. If you do not get tested weekly, you go through the student conduct process. So really encourage you to do that if you are on an approved waiver on campus. But if you are vaccinated and you are experiencing symptoms or you're concerned at all, then there will be a testing site on campus where you can get tested for COVID-19.
Thank you so much. Christian, we are back with you. I am wondering about the suites with bathrooms. Do we need to bring our own shower curtains, towel hooks, etc.? And specifically, do you have any advice for glass halls suites with bathrooms?
Yeah, good question. So for bathrooms, within suites, they typically will either have like a shower door. We're looking at like Fairhaven or Burnham Wood for most of those suites. Their shower slider door, a door that opens back and forth. Buchanan Towers has shower curtains. So the answer is no, you wouldn't need to provide your own hooks or shower curtain. From my understanding with Glass Hall, that same thing too, is that we would provide, those would already be installed before you have to come in. So unless you wanted to bring like a fancy like shower curtain, but we wouldn't recommend that because sometimes they're smaller. So.
Thank you so much. Dave, this one is for you. Can I loft my bed? And what is the process for getting bed parts for lofting a bed?
Yeah, and so this is one, if anyone has any updated information, they can jump into, but we have had a change in this over the last few years due to a couple reasons. We with the pandemic, it was much more difficult to try to pass out bed parts. And there was a safety concern around that. But also, we've been moving in the direction of purchasing different bed furniture. And so when you move in, depending on the type of room that you come into, the triples do, in many cases, either have bunked or lofted, a lofted bed. And so those rooms do have that. All the other rooms will come with all the bed parts in there to either have the bed in a what we call a low single or a high single. So you can choose to do either one. You just kind of reverse the bed parts a little bit. And the high single doesn't give you a full loft, but does put the bed up high enough that you can store plenty of items underneath it. But there isn't an option at this point in time to be able to get other parts to loft the beds. And that's where we're moving for the future too, as we purchase new beds. There is an option. The beds are extra long singles. So for the great majority of students, you'll be able to fit perfectly fine in the twin bed. For those of you who might be a little longer, and by longer, I believe I mean about 6'5" or taller, we do have extensions. And so you're going to want to, there's information on the website about requesting an extension so that we can have that in when you come in. Or if you're just not going to fit in the bed, let us know. And based on availability, we can get that to you.
And it's actually 6'8" or taller for those bed extensions. And an additional thing to Dave's answer is that most of the beds will actually be set up as those high singles to begin with. So you can make it lower if you want to, if you don't want it up kind of that medium height. Waist height is about where it's at. But yeah, it's set up as a high single for you to begin with, and then you can lower it if you want to.
And I do see something on the chat there, and the answer to bringing your own loft extensions or even the little plastic things you would sit in is that we don't allow that for safety purposes. So the bed parts that are in the room is what we ask you to utilize.
Thank you so much. Kaimi, this question is for you. If I already have a room assignment, is it possible to see what else is available without giving up my current room?
You can do that through room selection until it closes on August 15th. It'll actually be open through midnight or 11:59 on August 15th. So you just go back to room selection and click on the change my room selection option. And you can search to your heart's content, and it won't put you in a different room. You won't lose your current assignment unless you actually add that next room to your cart and check out.
Thank you so much. Katie, this question is for you. How would I go about getting a parking pass?
Yeah, so if you're planning on keeping a car on campus as a student, you'll want to purchase a parking pass. That is done online through Transportation Services. So I'll post a link for that as well in the chat. Specifically for move-in arrival, you don't need a specific pass for that. Just follow the directions of the staff on that date to be sure that you're in compliance with our traffic patterns. But definitely anyone storing a car or keeping a car after moving in will need a pass in order to avoid getting a ticket.
Thank you, Katie. Christian, this one is for you. Can we get food deliveries to the residence halls? For example, like pizza deliveries, other delivery services?
Yeah, absolutely. Bellingham also has DoorDash, Postmates, all of that too. So you're just going to want to be specific about where the delivery person should meet you, since they don't have immediate access into the building. So usually a loading zone or like a 20-minute spot is where you're going to meet your person. But absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Katie. We are back to you. Do students need to have coins to operate the washers and dryers in the halls?
They do not. So the price of the laundry is included in your greater housing and dining bill. So you don't need to bother bringing any coins, quarters, etc. to do your laundry.
Thank you. Dave, this question is for you. Is there any furniture provided in the common rooms of suites, specifically in Fairhaven? I think you're still muted, Dave.
Sorry about that. There generally is, but it really depends on the specific suite that you're in. A lot of the suites, for instance, in Fairhaven, there really isn't a common space. However, in some of the suites, there is a little common area, and those spaces generally will have a chair or chairs and possibly a couch, depending on how big it is, as well as a lot of times like an end table. So just like in our lounge areas, we do provide seating options and some table space for students in those common spaces.
Thank you. Christian, this one is back over to you. What kitchen items do students typically have in their room? For example, coffee mugs, plates, bowls, silverware, etc. What is recommended?
So just to clarify the question, in cases of the question is that kitchen items are not typically provided automatically. So there is an expectation that students bring their own like coffee mugs, plates, etc. So there's not really, they're all blank. So you have to bring your own stuff. But if you're asking for what typical students will bring to campus and you're asking for that recommendation, I'd say it just depends on your space. So if you just have like a room, I've seen students just carry like a set of coffee mugs, their own utensils, that kind of thing. But you're just going to want to scope out your space and see what kind of space you have to have those things and an immediate access to like a sink to clean those things. So some areas have floor kitchens or stack kitchens. But if you have access to immediate kitchen, then obviously like more, you can bring more pots and pans and whatnot, but totally up to you.
Thank you. Kaimi, this one is for you. Is it too late to apply for housing? Is there a date that students who applied late to housing should expect to know where they will be housed?
There's a couple of different answers because there's a couple sections to that question. So is it too late to apply for housing? At this point, you are very late for housing. We are quite full for fall. You can certainly still submit an application, but it will be on hold and you will be offered housing on a space available basis. So after we get those temp assignments folks into their assignments, we'll look to see if we have the availability to offer to anybody else. And the second part of that question, I think, was if you applied late, when will you be assigned? Is that right, Mackenzie?
Yes, my assumption is that they are students who are in temp housing.
Sure, yeah. So if you're in assignment pending is what we call this status. And that means you may get a permanent assignment, but you might be in one of those temporary spaces where you're with an RA, something like that. And we will let you know where you'll be moving in for the fall by September 2nd. So that information will be posted in the housing portal. So you'll have information about, am I with an RA or am I in a temporary spot or did I get a permanent assignment by that point?
Thank you so much. Vicki, does masks indoors mean in the rooms? I think we covered this as well. Or is that just in classes? Can we get a little bit more information on the mask policy in the residence halls?
Sure. Yes, masks are indoors. So when you're going to your classes, in the library, in the Viking Union, all of those places, mask is required as long as you're inside. If you're outside, mask is not required unless you can't feel uncomfortable or can't really physical distance or you're with a lot of people. Then it's recommended. But inside the residence hall specifically, we do require masks. That does not mean in your room. So in your room, we really consider that your home, your living space. You're with those people a lot. So you do not need to wear a mask inside your room unless you'd like to. But any public areas, so our lounges, hallways, lobby areas, a mask is required.
Thank you so much. We are at 5:55, so just a little quick warning. Around 5:58 is probably when we'll answer our last question. These are all incredible, and I'll give a little bit more info at the end on how you can contact us in the future if your question didn't get answered. For now, Dave, this next question is for you. Should/can we bring cleaning electronics like vacuums? Are there communal vacuums for us to check out?
Yes. You can both bring your own if you'd like to, and it's very convenient. We do at the desk also offer students are able to check out vacuums, brooms, things like that to keep their space clean as well.
Thank you. Christian, do you have any recommendations on meal plan selection?
You know, I would say it just depends on how much you want to eat in the dining hall. Me personally, if you want my personal recommendation, I loved when I had a meal plan when I used to live in the building, because I didn't like to do dishes. I also just I really like the dining hall food, and there you can always look at the menu beforehand and go to different dining commons, whether that's Ridge Commons is serving this or Fairhaven Commons is serving that. And so I guess it just really depends on what you're into. You can also switch up your meal plan, typically like the end or beginning of each of the quarters. So if you find yourself that you have too much or too little, you can always switch it up and go up or down on that meal plan.
We often actually recommend, if you're unsure, start a little bit lower, just because you can increase at any time, but you can only decrease that meal plan during the first 2 weeks of every quarter. So by that second Friday after you've moved in, you have to decrease if you're going to do that. So the first quarter can be a little hard to know what you're going to use. So if you're unsure, you can start a little bit lower and then you can increase at any time.
Thank you both. Jaime, this question is for you, and there are quite a bit of parts, so I can repeat any of it if you need. Are you able to pay tuition and or housing in increments, example, half and half, or do you pay all at once? Let's start with that, and then I'll get to the second half of that.
So at this point, the Student Business Office does not allow you to pay in installments. I know that they have been working on an opportunity for that, but I believe at this point that is not the case. So if you want more information about that, I would definitely recommend contacting the Student Business Office directly, and they can give you more information about that.
Wonderful. And the second half of this was, how do we find how much we're going to pay for housing and tuition?
Sure. So housing and dining are going to be a separate fee from tuition. So you'll look in different places for those. Certainly the Student Business Office will have links for all of those rates on their website, but the housing and dining rates are on our website. So you can head to the University Residences website and find the rates there. Also, we will be billing fairly shortly. We're going to be doing that during the last full week of August. So those bills will be on your account and you'll be able to see that there.
Wonderful. And to close out with one last question, this one is about move-in. I'm going to throw this to Katie. How long are the move-in time slots? This person has 2 students moving in on the same day, but in different residence halls.
Yeah, so the move-in time slots are 30 minutes each. And what that consists of is you arrive in your car first to a staging area, and you'll get more instruction about that going forward. You'll stay in your car in the parking lot and be directed to staff in tents, which will then give you your keys and a welcome bag. And then you'll be directed up to your building to unload. And after that, you'll move your car to one of our longer term parking lots for the rest of the day. And then you can come back to your building and set up your room. So overall, that's a 30-minute time slot. We are doing our best to move everybody through the line as quickly as we can, but we do appreciate your patience on move-in day because there's a lot of moving parts going on. I would recommend for anyone with multiple students looking to move in, you definitely need to sign up for 2 time slots. And then, so, you know, go through and do 1 student and then get them all squared away, and then go back through again and do the second one and get them squared away too.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. We are hitting time, so I am going to close this out for the evening. Thank you all for joining us. And just as a reminder, this event was recorded, so we will be posting this as soon as possible to our housing website. If you had a question that you did not get answered, or you are thinking about this later tonight and you're like, I should have asked that question, you can contact our housing front desk either by looking on our housing website for that information. Our email is also just housing@wwu.edu. Our phone number is on our website, 360-650-6565. And you will get in touch with me or one of our other front desk staff who is trained to get you to the proper person to get your question answered. Thank you all so much for joining us. Hopefully we were able to answer as many of your questions as possible, and we really look forward to having you on campus this fall.
Thank you.